courageous Kristen. Everybody clap it up. So here we go. You ready for this? Kristen, you're going to stand up here. Most people are going to stand back while I read the bio, but I want you to stand up here in the spirit of being witnessed. You guys ready for this? Let's see how much love we can send her with your arms out. I think we need something a little more like upbeat. What's your song? Okay, I know. Let's play Beyond Love by Yvonne Torin as I read this, okay? And your job is going to be like we talked about with the pillars today, where you're just like owning like your positioning. Okay. Is this pushing your comfort zone a little bit? Oh. Okay. Well, all right. We're going to see if we can make it push your comfort zone by how much love you send her. Kristen Gray is the creative architect and founder of Wild Reaver. She's privileged to be homeschooling 5 kids. I think that deserves a little bit of applause. Not only is she homeschooling these 5 kids, she's building businesses across multiple industries and guiding others through their own transformation into aligned success. Her work sits at the intersection of strategy and soul, where the structures that sustain us meet the creativity that makes life worth living. And after surviving a traumatic brain injury that nearly took her out, Kristen rebuilt not just her career, but her whole identity. That journey became a heartbeat of Wild Reverb, a movement reminding leaders that the same moments meant to break us can become the ones that make us whole. Today she helps visionaries turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, guiding dreamers to design lives that actually work, and showing that creativity and business can coexist so that purpose-driven people can rise whole, lead with heart, and thrive without losing their wonder. Okay, and I want to share one fun fact about Kristen too. She swears her best ideas arrive somewhere between dreaming big, homeschooling 5 kids, investor calls, and stirring homemade jam. Oh, I'm a big fan of homemade jam. Proof that creativity thrives with a little chaos. Kristen!
Hey everyone, thank you. Just real quick, my favorite jam that I made this past year was a pineapple strawberry chocolate. Ooh. Did you not have any of that, Sarah? I'll bring you a jar. So, I want to thank Myra and Gerald and Alex for having me up here. I am part of the Legends Leaders group, and so I spent the last 6 months figuring out kind of my way. The last couple years have been really transitory for me, and so I was like, sure, I'll buy into this, and it's been incredible. I can't even describe what changes have happened in my life in the last 6 months working with them, so that's been really awesome. How many of you in this room have had an instant in your life, or know someone who's had an instant in your life, where the second after life will never be the same again? You've had something happen in your life where you know from that second on your life has changed. So my life has been filled with these. For some reason, I just don't learn the lessons. So one in particular, the head injury that was mentioned, I was flipping a condo up in Briarhead. I was painting, I was up on the ladder, came down, it was cathedral ceilings, 18-foot tall ceilings, folding up the folding ladder, and it slipped. Came crashing down right on my head. Spoiler alert, I survived. So what happened in the moments after are really telling to me, because what I did is I folded up the ladder, put it away, called my husband at the time and my mom, said I'm fine, but if you don't hear from me, check on me, and then I dropped. Found myself in the bed 3 days later, finally waking up. I spent those 3 days fighting like hell to get back into my body because my son's birthday was 3 days from the day that injury happened. So spoiler, I woke up, I'm fine, I'm here, but I had to learn how to live again. I had to learn how to read, I had to learn how to cook, I had had to completely come back into my body. So this transformation that started really from that day, where I'm a whole new being, has so many different nuances and layers in it, as all of our lives do. Mine, if you will, let me take you on this journey, jumped all the way back to when I was 2 weeks old, getting a spinal tap, because I had meningitis. And I'm like, little baby, realizing that life is not safe. That's one of my programmings that were given to me right from the get-go. Life is not safe. And I had that lesson over and over and over again in my life. People would show up, people would leave, things would happen. I'm sure we all, how many of you had conflicts with your parents? And how many of those led you to believe that life is not safe? So through learning these lessons, I apparently needed more lessons. So I got myself pregnant in high school and decided to take that journey. And that one was full of shame and guilt because I was raised in a very religious, very strict household. And so I'm adding layers and layers and layers onto this. And then fast forward, I had another kid, found a husband, and I did not have the foundation that I needed to sustain this marriage. 2 years ago, I walked away. Technically moved next door. And that has been one of the hardest and best decisions I've ever made for myself, because I finally understood that I had all of these layers and my foundation was crumbling. How many can relate to that? I know it's heavy. There's a point. So the head injury was in 2018, and it took me another 6 years after that to realize I was living a lie. Releasing myself from the guilt and the shame that I put myself through for breaking up my family, which is not something you do in a religious upbringing. You stick together no matter what. And stepping up and showing my children that choosing themselves and living their truth is more important than anything that people have stuffed in your head. So my kids are actually really awesome. I know, we all say that about our kids, right? So my 14-year-old the other day, he wanted Burger King. He came over and he's like, I want $10, Mom. And I was like, that's cute. And he's like, no, really? I was like, okay, sure. What do you want it for? Sell me on this. And he was like, I want Burger King. And I was like, I'm not giving you $10 for Burger King. I don't agree with you putting that in your body. And he's like, well, what if I find a way to get that $10? Sure, you can take yourself to Burger King. It's right around the corner. He's old enough. I raised my kids like we're in the 80s. They have free reign of the neighborhood. It's great. They have these little pods. They all like go around the neighborhood, causing terror, knocking on doors, making money. So what he did is he went next door and he knew that my 12-year-old had some cash. He had just finished cleaning a roof off for the neighbor and earned like $300 cleaning pigeon poop off their solar panels. So he's like, I have a 2-for-1 coupon. If I get him to pay for my Burger King, then I get free Burger King. So my 12-year-old agreed, and he was like, we went and got the Burger King. And I asked him, I was like, you know your brother did this, right? He's like, well, it was worth the cost. And I was like, you were willing to pay full price for this meal when you knew he had a 2-for-1 coupon and you could have split the cost with him. And he was like, you don't understand, Mom. I didn't have to spend my time to go get that Burger King. It was completely worth it to me. So what are we trading our dollars for? What do you guys trade your dollars for? Convenience, time. What's more important, money or time? Time. We don't have the ability to create more time. We only have what we have, right? We don't even know how much of it we actually have. And yet we find ourselves sitting back in the pity parties, in the, oh man, this is happening to me instead of for me. And we're not seeing what could be on the other side of that door if we're willing to make some simple changes in the way that we're looking at things. For instance, I was helping my parents move a couple months ago from Vegas. They moved to Texas. We had the first of the big trucks loaded. It took two. And my dad blew a tire and the brakes caught fire just outside of Kingpin. He had both the dogs with him. They were freaking out. My dad thankfully was able to pull over to the side, get that taken care of. He's safe, they're fine. And I said, what blessing is gonna come out of this, Dad? And he's like going on and on and on about all the things that are going wrong. And I said, no, what is the blessing that's coming out of this? You already called and said the dogs were driving you nuts. Did you really want to drive another 24 hours with the dogs? And he's like, well, and I was like, well, now I can come and pick up the dogs and I can just bring them when I go with Mom with the next truck. And he's like, oh. And he was like, well, they have to unload me and this and that. And I was like, but they're going to offload the truck and put it on the new truck for you. And he's like, well, yeah, but, and I was like, but what? The truck you're driving right now is 15 years old, has 120,000 miles, and you still have to drive to Texas in this truck. They just gave you a new truck with 6,000 miles on it. And he's like, hold on, what? So these things that happen in our life that look like they're catastrophes may actually be our biggest blessing. Everything is conspiring for our good if we choose to look at it that way. Do you agree?
Yes.
I can name example after example after example in my life of how this plays out in my life. Ultimately, with everything that I've gone through in my life, I choose joy. I choose the silver lining. Do any of you know the movie Pollyanna?
Yes.
How many know Pollyanna?
Are you a Pollyanna?
I am. Mixed with Anna Green Gables and some Arwen. And the thing is Pollyanna at the end of the movie, if you don't know the movie, she gets polio and becomes paralyzed. And she spends so much time sitting there looking out the window going, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? And then someone opens the window for her. And she gets the sun shining on her face. And she says, oh, I forgot what that felt like. Have any of you ever been in such a deep, dark hole that you don't know what that sun feels like anymore? And if you don't know that feeling, I'm sure you know someone who has been through that feeling. And it's so hard to crawl back out of. But with the right people in your life, you're able to crawl back out of that hole, and someone's going to open those blinds and shine the light on your face again for you. It's only a matter of time. I've been in that hole so many times. Clearly, me learning lessons takes a while. However, it is absolutely possible for you to rewrite these codes that you have in you. And change them. So that instead of defaulting to, crap, why is this happening to me? To, why is this happening for me? What is that door that's opening? What good is going to come out of this in my life? What can I not see right now? We need to get down and get curious and be like, oh, maybe this is going to be the next great adventure or side quest of my life. Because we all know that life itself is not about the destination. It's about the journey and the side quests and the path that you take on this life quest that we have. Because in those moments, in those learnings, that's what we came down to this earth experience to experience. If you think about it, at least the way I believe about things, is that we were so bored creating all the things up in the cosmos that we wanted to experience adversity. That we signed up for this. Think about it. When you do the same thing over and over and over and over again, it just gets so boring. We're creators. Without this containment, without this body, we are infinite beings. We can do whatever we want. So why not challenge ourselves and stick us in this little meat suit and say, here, go have some challenges and adventures and learn something new. We don't have these sensations without this body. So the biggest challenge with being in this body is that we want to disassociate. We don't want to be here. We signed up for this. We crammed our soul into this meat suit, which is super phenomenal, by the way. There's so many fun sensations in it. And then we're like, wait, but I didn't actually want this. What do you mean I wanted this? Why am I in this thing? I want to escape it constantly. The real joy in life comes in realizing that you are controlling this. Every experience that you have, you are 100% controlling. And the way that we get around to controlling our experiences instead of having them control us is by doing the work, by looking at ourselves, by finding where we're automatically going negative and see if we can turn it into something positive and for our good. Does that sound good? Does that sound like a life that you guys would want?
Yes.
So the way that I've been able to do this in my life, through so many different experiences, is I look at it, and then like Alex was saying, we have the stories that we've applied to it, and I say, those stories are bullshit. They are. And I say, because of these things, I was able to then do all of this. And I sit there and I trigger myself on purpose. I find all my triggers, as many as I can. Don't be sadistic like me, or masochistic rather. I'll sit there and I'll trigger myself until I figure out what the root trigger is. So then once I obliterate that, I have freed up so many paths in my life. How many of you have read The Existential Kink or heard of it? The Deepest Fear Inventory. So I actually just got done with a pod of doing this. We did 2 weeks of it. And I did it a little differently. I wrote down 13 things that I wanted to call in for this year that I needed to work on, that I was afraid of. And I burned 12 of them. It burned so hot that there is literally a permanent burn mark in my oak table. Burned through the hot pad, burned through the tablecloth. Literally, yes, it's great. I released so much in that fire. And the one thing that was left for me is the one that I did the deepest fear inventory on. Because I realized in doing this in the past that I never got to the one thing that I actually needed to work on. I always figured that with the deepest fear inventory, I was picking something and that's what I needed to work on, and realizing that those were the shallow fears that I needed to work on. So by releasing that to the universe and it giving me the one that I needed, which by the way was the hardest out of all of them, that was the one that touched my life the most. So if you haven't gone into the deepest fear inventory, it's something I highly recommend. Existential Kink will go through it in detail, and there's follow-up things that go along with that. Ultimately, what it all comes back to with this journey is that this journey is about joy, finding out who you are, and not letting anyone else tell you that. So you have to dig down and deconstruct who you think you are, so that you can come out on the other side the squeaky clean person that you knew you were when you were born. Because we're all born who we are. And society tells us who we are, and we let them, because we don't know any better. So, Cato, can you put this up? I put together this workbook. It's a somatic reconnection journey. And it's just, I mean, you can take it as deep as you want. This is for you guys. And it goes through and asks you some questions about how to drop into your body, where to feel, how to feel. A lot of times we've been so disconnected from our body that we don't even feel pain. We don't feel joy. We don't feel anything because we've completely disassociated. So I invite you to go through this workbook and figure out where your spark is, because it's all alive in us. No matter how small, it's still there. You're still breathing, you still have a spark. And I hope you find some of who you are this year on this journey. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Kristen Gray! Aren't you just inspired hearing her story? What a courageous journey. Sometimes, we just don't realize how courageous people are until, we dig into, what helped them become who they are. I really love this quote. It says, "No strong person ever came from an easy past." No strong person ever came from an easy past. Those challenges, those struggles, those moments of courage that you had to dig deep, that's what gave you the capacity to be who you're meant to be. All right, okay. So there's a lot of things happening in the room. All right. So in a moment, what's going to happen